Good day everyone. Today we will going to discuss about the Philippines a century hence. Rizal say Filipinas dentro de 100 años, translated as the Philippines within 100 years, serves as a poignant reflection on the past, present, and future of the Philippines under Spanish rule. Through this essay, Rizal aimed to forecast the trajectory of the nation, shedding light on its past glory, the economic decline under colonization, and the plight of its people. This essay, published in La Solidaridad of Madrid, not only exposed the harsh realities of Spanish domination, but also issued a warning about the inevitable consequences of continued oppression. By analyzing the root causes of Filipino suffering, Rizal sought to ignite a sense of nationalism among his compatriots, urging them to fight for their rights and envision a brighter future. The essay begins by analyzing the causes of the miseries endured by the Filipino people. First cause is that Spain's implementation of military laws. These policies led to a significant decrease in the population, widespread poverty, neglect of Filipino units, and overall retardation of Filipino society. Second cause is the deterioration and the disappearance of Filipino indigenous culture. The arrival of Spain resulted in the gradual destruction of native culture, leading to a loss of confidence in their heritage and sense of hopelessness about the future. Third cause is the passivity and the submissiveness to Spanish colonizers. The influence of Spanish friars, using force and intimidation in the name of religion, led to a culture of silence and submission among the natives. Rizal's essay aims to awaken Filipino nationalism, urging them to fight for their rights. He questions whether Spain can suppress the growth and development of the Philippines. Despite the oppression, corruption, and deterioration brought by colonization, Rizal remains optimistic about eventual progress. He argues about three things. First argument is, despite attempts to keep Filipinos uneducated, national consciousness has awakened and great minds have emerged. Second argument of Rizal is, living in poverty spurred Filipinos to seek change and explore other avenues for progress. Last, despite attempts to exterminate them, the Filipino race survived wars and famines, growing even more numerous.
The essay, Philippines a Century Hence, discusses Rizal's opinions and forecasts for the Philippines' future, speculating how the nation will change and advance over the course of a century, and how Rizal stressed that reform should be initiated with the government to be peaceful and effective. Initially, Filipinos see Spaniards as protectors, sometimes stunned by the attractive promises or by the friendships offered by the noble and generous people of Spain, but later, they realize that they are exploiters and executors. What made them realize that they are exploiters and executors are their common experiences from Spain, and that is felt across the regions and localities in the Philippines, from all of the insults, trickery, and the oppressions of Filipinos from excessive taxation, and the unjust persecution for speaking up, persistent poverty, corrupt implementation of Spanish penal code and their colonial policies. So the question would be, what will become of the Philippines within a century? If the government of Spain does not change its act, the people will start to awaken and a revolution will occur. Rizal argued that progress in modernity is inevitable and Spain should stop insisting on its old way. So in this part, Rizal is already telling the Spaniards the way they should change things. And he also recommended that since the Spanish is governing a colony from a distance, and what worse could have happened since hindi naman nila alam kung ano ba talaga ang mga totoong nangyayari sa Pilipinas. What Rizal had envisioned in his essay came true. Rizal was confident as he envisioned the awakening of the hearts and opening the minds of Filipino regarding their plight. He prophesied that the Philippines will be successful in its revolution against Spain. Indeed, the Philippines won the independence from Spain, and Americans took over in colonizing the country. So, the Philippines a century hence is as relevant today as it was written over a century ago, and this essay serves as a reminder that we Filipinos are historically persevering and strong-minded. Rizal also shared why we must focus on strengthening the most important backbone of the country, our values, mindsets, and the beliefs that shape our sense of national identity. The lesson learned from those years of colonization were that all those efforts to keep people uneducated, impoverished had failed. Nationalism eventually thrived, and the country became independent after 3 centuries of abusive Spanish rule and 5 decades under the Americans.
According to Braid's article that was published on 2017, she pointed out the pressing need for public awareness and national unity in the face of encroaching autocracy and challenges to our sovereignty. She highlights the difficulty of governance in society that is divided and fragmented, stressing the importance of fostering connections between citizens and their communities. So Braid expressed the missed opportunities to utilize communication technologies for positive purposes such as education and social cohesion, instead of allowing them to perpetuate chaos and misinformation. She criticizes the failure to address widening social and income disparities, which she sees as symptoms of our inability to forge solidarity with marginalized communities. Braid's words serves as a call to action, reminding us that our collective survival depends on each individual's willingness to take responsibility for creating a fairer and more compassionate society. So how about you? What can you do for the country as a Filipino youth? Share your answers in the comment section.
Other related writings, apart from Rizal Isay on the Philippines, a century hence, he had also penned several other brilliant writings that helped awaken the sense of patriotism among the early Filipinos, which paved the way for Philippine revolutions.
Rizal Isay, The Indolence of Filipinos, is a defense against the Spaniards' characterization of Filipinos as inherently lazy or indolent. Rizal argued that the decline in economic activities during the Spanish regime was not due to the Filipinos' laziness, but rather due to several factors that were beyond their control. First, the establishment of gallantry served the Philippines' previous association with other countries in Asia and Middle East, leading to exclusive business and dealing with Spain through Mexico. As a result, the small businesses and handicrafts industries that have flourished during the pre-Spanish period gradually disappeared, as they were no longer able to engage in the trade with other countries. Second, Spain's implementation of forced labor extinguished the native law of war. Ongoing war between Spain and other European countries, as well as conflict with Muslim in Mindanao, compelled Filipinos to work in shipyard, road, and other public works, abandoning agriculture, industry, and commerce. This shift in labor focus had detrimental impact on the economy and traditional industry. And the third, Spain's failure to protect the Filipino people against foreign invaders encouraged left the native defenseless. As a result, many were killed and their homes were burned and their lands were destroyed. This led to Filipinos become nomadic, losing their interest in cultivating their lands or rebuild the industries that had been shut down and becoming reliant on their external assistance for their survival. The fourth is the education system under Spanish rule was flawed, focusing on repetitive prayers and neglecting subjects such as agriculture and industry, which were vital for the country's progress at the time. This lack of practical and relevant education hindered the development of essential skills and knowledge needed for the nation's advancement. Fifth is the Spanish rulers set a poor example by despising manual labor and neglecting their duties. Their behavior, reports to work late and leaving early without fulfilling their responsibilities, had a negative influence on the work ethics of the population, contributing to a lack of productivity and progress. Sixth is the widespread propagation of gambling, including daily cockfight and engagement in bets and gambles by government officials and friars during these days, further disrupted the population from productive activities and contributed to a culture of unproductive leisure activities. Seventh is the religious system under Spanish rule distorted the perception of work and prosperity. The friars taught the native Filipinos that it was easier for a poor man to enter heaven, and leading many to prefer not to work and remain poor in the hope of easily entering heaven after death. This belief system is discouraged the pursuit of prosperity and economic development. Other factors attributable to the Filipinos themselves, and there are the following. It is Rizal identifies internal factors contributing to the indolence of Filipinos. This include the pervasive feeling of inferiority that paralyzes growth and development, a tendency to rely on miracle due to influence of ancient epics and legend, a lack of ambition to pursue lofty goals and resulting from conditioning as inferior race, and lack of national sentiment leading to a focused negative situation rather than pride and the country achievements. In conclusion, Rizal emphasizes the importance of a good education and liberty as the main solution to address the problem indolence and achievement progress in the Philippines. By addressing both external and internal factors, Rizal believes that the Filipino people can overcome indolence and strive towards a brighter future.
Lastly, the Filipino face heavy taxes and exploitation, leading to a significant portion of their income going to the government or the friars. This burden and exploitation reduce their motivation to work and result in a state of inaction. So Rizal acknowledges that Filipino did not work as hard due to their adaptation to the warm tropical climates. He explained that working for an hour under the scorching sun amidst the harsh influences of nature is equivalent to a day labor in a temperate climate. Engaging in intense physical labor in tropical countries was considered a detrimental and potentially fatal, leading to reduced work ethic. And Rizal pointed out that the indolence attributed to the Filipino race was also influenced by the lack of access to education, insufficient resources in school, and scarcity of useful knowledge. Furthermore, when Filipinos attempt to establish businesses, they face challenges such as inadequate capital and limited government protection. The cultivation and land and the development of industries were also hindered by the imposition of heavy taxes and exploitation by foreign rulers.
Next, we'll be discussing Mr. Rizal's legacy to Filipino women, which is entitled To the Young Women of Malolos, where he addresses all kinds of women, mothers, wives, the unmarried, and expresses everything that he wishes them to keep in mind. The names on the screen are the 20 brave women of Malolos from the Sangdi Mestizo clans at the time. So, Sangdi, Sangdi Mestizo, Mestizong Sangdi, or the Mestizo de Sangdi or Chinese Mestizo is a term used in the Philippines during the Spanish colonial period to describe or classify a person mixed mixed Chinese and Filipino ancestry. So, most of them are from the Tanchanco, Reyes, Santos, Tantuco, and the Chongson family of the native Chinese and the Spanish ancestry. So a few of them had received education at the college like Colegio de San Don Corga, and they all lived in a Chinese neighborhood of the Pariancielo, Malolos. They were all related by either blood or affinity and were friends as well. So during the Philippine Revolution against Spain, many of them aided the revolutionaries. Later, many of them were also involved in women's social-civic organization. For most, ang ilang main commitment was to the family. All of them were accomplished at keeping house. In fact, they were specifically requested at night school as they were all busy with household tasks during the day. So although none of them were married at that time, whether they're married or not, throughout their lives, most of these women of Malolos run organized households, whether for their family or their parents or siblings. So a number of them were also involved in businesses as well. During December 12, 1888, si Governor General Variano Willers is nag-visit here to Malolos, where he requested to hold an audience with the townsfolk. So, upon getting the word of this, si Theodoro Sandeco wrote a Spanish letter addressed to the Governor General and asked the women he had been teaching to sign it. So the letter is a plea for schooling, which was signed by the 20 women of Malolos who went to the convent to present the letter to Willer in the afternoon. So one of their leaders, si Alberta Oitangcoy, handed him the letter. The women then waited around for a response compelling the Governor General to read it on the spot. The friars headed by Father Felipe Garcia, the Spanish curator of the Malolos Church, which is now known as the Menor Basilica of Our Lady of Immaculate Conception, or the Malolos Church, highly objected their plea, which heavily influenced the Governor General's decision na i-turn down first ang ilahang petition. However, in the defiance of the friars' wrath, kani mga women bravely continued their clamor to have a proper schooling, which is a thing wala pa na dun sa Philippines during those times. So, in the end, this woman succeeded in obtaining the government's approval, however, with certain conditions. So the conditions are, first, the women were required to fund the school themselves since the government refused to. Second is the teacher should be Guadalupe Reyes rather than Sandico, who had been blacklisted by Malolos Friars Curate. Third, the classes would have to be held in the day and not at night, probably due to nighttime gatherings with subversive meetings. School was opened immediately after the approval of the petition, which was called the Instituto de Mujeres. So it was opened of one of the home of the women, which was Rufina Teorias. However, na-close na siya og dali in May 1889, just 3 months after opening tungod sa friars' pressures. So, karon makita gyapon ang katong school sa end of Centennial Street. These are Jose Rizal's salient points in his letter. First is the rejection of the spiritual authority of friars. So, not all of the priests sa una sa ating country that time embodied the true spirit of Christ and His church. Kaya most of them were corrupted by worldly desires and use of worldly methods to give change and enforce discipline among the people. Next is ang defense to private judgment, the qualities of Filipino mothers needs to possess. Kay si Jose Rizal is greatly concerned sa welfare of Filipino children and the homes that they grew up in. Next is duties and responsibilities of Filipino mothers to their children and a wife to her husband. Since sa una is Filipino women are known to be submissive, tender, and loving. Rizal states in his letter that women ought to be as wives in order to preserve the identity of their race. Next is counsel to young women of their choice sa ilahang lifetime partner. So, it is obvious na sa ihang letter, ihang desire was for women to be offered the same opportunities sa mga lalaki in terms of education. Kay during those days, kay mga bata or like mga babae were not sent to school because of the universal notion na they are would be taken as wives and stay at home with the children. However, Rizal emphasizes on freedom of thought and the right to education, which must be granted to both boys and girls.
In his letter to the young women of Malolos, Rizal emphasized the significant role Filipino mothers play in shaping their children's character. He highlights that a mother's action and attitudes directly influence the development of her children. Rizal warns against the danger of mothers who blindly submit to authority figures such as friars, as this behavior can lead to children who passively follow orders without questioning their rights as individuals. Essentially, Rizal underscores the importance of mothers. Rizal further elaborates on the qualities that Filipino mothers should possess in order to fulfill their responsibilities effectively. First, be a noble wife. Mothers are encouraged to uphold decency, dignity, and submission within their marriage. They should exhibit tenderness and love towards their husbands, setting a positive example of marital harmony for their children. Second is rear her children in the service of the state. Drawing inspiration from Spartan women, Rizal underscores the importance of mothers instilling a sense of patriotism and service to the nation in their children. They should teach their offspring to love God, their country, and their fellow citizens. And lastly, set standards of behavior for men around her. Mothers are tasked with influencing the behavior of not just their children, but also their husbands. Rizal suggests that wives should imbue their husbands with qualities such as industriousness, nobility, and virtuous sentiments. Additionally, wives should support their husbands through challenges, share their burdens, and provide comfort during the times of distress. To summary, Rizal emphasized the important role of Filipino mothers in shaping not only the character of their children, but also the moral fabric of society through their actions, teachings, and example.
So we proceed to Rizal's advice to unmarried men and women. In young men, Rizal was directly telling young men that in choosing their lifetime partner, they should not consider the physical beauty nor the sweetness character of a woman, but rather give a priority to fairness of character and excellent idea. So, napakasimple ng advice ni Rizal sa mga kalalakihan in choosing partner in life. Huwag daw tumingin sa labas na anyo, huwag basihan yung physical appearance or the physical beauty of a woman. At the same time, huwag daw gawing standards sa pagpili yung pagiging malambing ng isang babae. That's according to Rizal. So, ano ba dapat ang quality na tinitingnan ng bawat kalalakihan sa isang partner? A partner must have a firm character ay pagiging matatag, pagiging matapang sa buhay, a recently person, and lastly, the partner must have an excellent idea. So, that is the advice of Rizal of the young men in choosing their lifetime partner. Move on to the advice of Rizal to young women that not married. So, we proceed to the summary to the young woman of Malolos. So, Filipino mothers should teach their children love of God, country, and fellow men. Filipino mothers should be glad and honored like Spartan mother offers their sons in defense of their country. Filipino women should know how to protect their dignity and honor. Filipino women should educate themselves aside from retaining their good racial value. And last, faith is not merely prayers and wearing a religious pictures. It is a living the real a Christian's way with good moral and manners. So it can be said that women of Malolos were the first advocate of the feminist movement in the country for championing the cause of human's right to education and equal rights regardless of gender. Rizal believed that women should be empowered.